Hello, boils and ghouls. Welcome back to the Horror After Dark podcast in the sack with JT, and it is officially Slasher September. As of this minute, right now that you're listening in the premiere, we're going to be talking slashers all month long, and the most important thing in a slasher film for me is the kills. And this movie has some really good kills in it. To the point that I prefer this, and this is where it's going to start off very controversial, I prefer My Bloody Valentine 3D, the remake, to the original. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that the original was cut to hell back in the day. And when I saw it, growing up, it was the cut version. We luckily got the restored kills in recent years. And it has gone up a little bit for me, but just because it's so ingrained in my memory and from seeing it over the years, with the cut kills, it just doesn't do it for me. This movie has a ton of stupidity. That I remember right off the bat, because I haven't seen this movie in quite a bit. The script is very weird at times. It's not a great script. The acting's not the best at times either. It's kind of like a generic late 2000s film that lucked out by having some really cool over-the-top kills. Even if there is some CGI that covers some of the practical stuff that doesn't look too great and doesn't hold up that well, some of the kills are pretty gnarly in this movie. So let's talk My Bloody Valentine 3D from 2009. Now this was directed by Patrick Lussier, who also did Dracula 2000, The Prophecy 3, I think like 2 more Dracula films, this film, and then he did some directing on the Scream TV series and Into the Dark, and the Purge TV series. So this guy's done a decent amount, but again, this isn't the greatest movie, but it's fun and entertaining. So the whole opening credits gives the backstory here, which I know is slightly different from the story of the original My Bloody Valentine, and I know they switched things up with like the killer at the end too, so at least it changes the story up a bit. But we hear the news of the mine collapse in this town. I don't know if it's still called Valentine's Bluff, we'll find out in a second. And Warden is the only person who survived. All the other miners were killed with a pickaxe, and Henry Warden is in a coma, and now it's 1 year later after the mining accident. Another thing that just adds a little bit to this movie that elevates it for me from the wave and tons of remakes of slashers and just horror films in general in the 2000s is that we have the legendary Tom Atkins in this movie as one of the sheriffs. And he gets killed in a gnarly, brutal way. And this is not the last video that we will be talking the legendary Tom Atkins in this month, because we have the Maniac Cop movies, and he is in the first one. So it's 1 year after the mining accident, and now Henry Warden is woken up at the hospital, and we already get some pretty cool dead bodies and gore effects. There are people mutilated in this hospital. He got up and he just butchered a bunch of people. And there's a woman with her chest ripped open, laying there dead, and we have Sheriff Tom Atkins and the rest of the police there. It is just a shit show in this wing of the hospital. You know how I've been calling him Henry? Forget all that. His name's Harry. Harry Warden. Alright, glad we got that settled. And don't forget, it's Slasher September, so there's no names for any of these characters in these slasher films unless they're important. So then we meet Sarah, her nice boyfriend Tom, and then their friends Axel and Irene, and they're partying at the mine. Now, the mining collapse took place in 1997, year prior to this, so this is 98. And then I think we jump forward like a decade. And this is Harry Warden's next stop, who's going right back to the mine, where these people are partying, and ends up murdering a bunch of the people partying in this mine, and just a few of them escape. And I gotta say, I like the look of the killer in this better than the original also. I mean, it's very similar. Obviously, it's just mining gear. But, I don't know, maybe it's just the way the killer's shot in this opening scene and stuff. I don't know. I like it better than the original. We get a quick kill from the killer where he takes the pickaxe and smashes into the guy's face who's on the ground. It's very, very quick, but it's alright. But then we get a really good kill, and it still holds up today, in my opinion. With the shovel, when he takes the shovel and he smashes the girl right in her mouth against the post, and then the bottom half of her body from the jaw down falls down with the top of her head on the top of the shovel. That looks awesome. This movie's similar for me to The Mutilator, just in the fact that it's all about the kills. I mean, I think this movie is a much better film in every possible way than The Mutilator, but it's still pretty generic late 2000s horror remake. You know, it just has that generic feel to it of that time period. Nothing that makes it stand out except for the really good kills. So that's how it reminds me of The Mutilator. That's like the 80s version of that's the movie that's all about the kills and everything else is dreadful for the most part. But a lot of charm. And I gotta say, it's advertised My Bloody Valentine 3D. I'm watching it. I'm not in the third dimension, so I feel like I was falsely advertised to. No, but the 3D stuff, it still looks fine if you're not watching it in 3D. Like, it's not like Friday 3, where it's so in your face, the fact that it was in 3D, so every time you watch it not in 3D, it's kind of jarring, at least for me. This doesn't have really, from what I remember, and so far, many moments like that it really sticks out like, oh, like this is so obvious that it had to be in 3D when they shot this. The 3D isn't really distracting. Like when he throws the pickaxe at the car when they're driving away and then it sticks in it, it's still a cool shot, like without the 3D effect. It holds up. But Tom gets left behind. He gets attacked by the miner, or Harry Warden. But then sheriffs show up, they start shooting at Harry Warden, he ends up escaping into the mines, and Tom is obviously completely 100% mentally okay after all this. He's traumatized to shit. Then it's a decade, we flash forward 10 years. And I'm pretty sure that Tom is the killer, right? Like from this point on, going forward, and at the end he's like seeing hallucinations and delusions, and he's seeing Harry Warden, and it's like his split persona or some shit. I don't know, the ending's not great for this movie, but we'll get there. Yeah, so no more Valentine's Bluff. The town is called Harmony, and it says it's the murder capital of the country or something. I don't know about that. Then they talk about 10 years ago and everything that happened, and supposedly Harry Warden is buried in the mine that he once worked in. So they think that he's dead. Axel is now the sheriff, and life seems to have moved on for everybody in the town. Oh, and boom, bombshell, Axel, the sheriff, his girl's preggo. One thing I could say I prefer about the original is just like the gritty feel and look to it compared to this movie. And I can't really fault this movie for being so clean looking and so polished because it was in 3D. It was shot that way. It had to look really polished. But I feel like that hurts this remake a bit because I do vastly prefer that grainier, grittier look and feel of the original, even with the kills cut. So then we see the traumatized but seemingly normal at face value Tom return to town, and his father died and left him the mine. So now he plans on selling the mine, which nobody's going to be happy with because the entire economy of this town is based on the mine. So Tom runs into a midget, I swear I'm not making that up, and she ends up bringing him to a motel to stay for the night or the weekend that he's there. And then we see this couple fucking, nice tits on the woman, / September. You ever notice in almost every movie where there's a character like Tom here who takes medication, you never see them just take one pill? They always pour a little bit out of the bottle and then chug like 4 or 5 in their mouth, a handful. You never see somebody just take a single dose of medication. I don't know, random, but I thought of it. I mean, all the requirements for a good slasher and a fun time this movie has. Nudity, you got full frontal and everything with this chick running around the parking lot getting chased by the miner, we'll call him for now. And great kill with the guy she was fucking in the hotel room. When he opens the truck door and the miner takes the pickaxe and smashes it into the top of his head and it lingers for a bit and then he violently pulls it out. That looks awesome. Alright, I swear, it's not nice to make fun of small people, midgets, dwarves, whatever they are, of course. But bear with me when I describe this scene, because at the end you'll realize it is absolutely hilarious. The midget hotel woman who brought Tom there, now the miner's on the loose and he's killing people. He goes over to the midget and takes the pickaxe, hooks her through the bottom of her mouth, like under her jaw, and then lifts her up through the roof. She's shaking, and it's obviously a dummy, but it is done in such a hilarious fashion. And the point is, it's a lot more hilarious because she's a midget. Okay, so that was Irene, the full frontal chick just now, from 10 years ago, who dated Axel, who is now the sheriff. There's a whole web of connections here, so this is what I gathered so far. Axel's the sheriff. He's married to Sarah, but he's fucking some bottom bitch on the side that she don't know about. And then if memory serves me, Tom and Sarah start reconnecting while he's in town, but then she doesn't know he's the fucking killer until the end of this movie. But Irene gets her whole stomach split open and her heart taken out, and Axel, who used to have a thing with her 10 years ago, has to come as the sheriff and see this. It obviously affects him in some way. Really good effects, too, on her body. As it's unfolding, I actually do like Sarah's character quite a bit. She gets all pissed when she sees Tom, saying that you disappeared for 10 years, we thought you were dead, your dad didn't even know where you were. So she's obviously still has feelings for him, but she's furious. But she moved on, she married Axel and they have a kid, and now she's pregnant with another kid. Pretty girl, sweet person, I like her character. So the sheriff's department finds video footage from the motel massacre with Irene and the midget, and they see the miner. So now some people are starting to think that Harry Warden never died and that he's back. Axel doesn't think so. He thinks it's just a copycat. So does great Tom Atkins. I don't know his fucking name. He's the sheriff. But cool scene in homage when Axel gets the box of chocolates delivered to the station and he opens it up and it's Irene's heart. Actually, all of the characters, for the most part in this movie, are pretty likable. Like, more so than I remembered. Like, there's not really any characters I dislike in this movie. You know what's weird from, like, watching this for the first time in a while and not remembering the story especially? It almost seems like they want you to know it's Tom from the get-go of this movie. Like, everyone's pissed he's back in town and that he's going to sell the mine. Everyone's pissed that he's back in town, and especially after the murders now, they think that he's responsible. They're pissed at him because back 10 years ago, he fucked up somehow on the site, which led to the mine explosion and collapse. Like, he didn't shut the gas or something like that. And so the whole town blames him and he's been running away from it forever. So, yeah, they don't really try to shed any doubt on the fact that it's probably this guy. So this scene's alright. It has some cool, like, zoom-in shots on the killer, but now I'm starting to wonder and try to remember how much of the ending doesn't make any fucking sense with Tom being the killer here. Because they're in the mine, and he gets locked by the miner, which we know is himself, in a cage. And then we see the miner killing one of the other people that are down there. And then before the rest of the group shows up, the miner's gone and he's still in the cage. And they see him in the cage and let him out. So he had to have killed the person down there and then in the last moment go and lock himself in the cage. I think they might even flash back to that at the end to explain it. I mean, if that's what it is, it's fine, I guess. I mean, it's a little ridiculous, but I can buy it. If that's how they explain it, that just in the last minute he locked himself in the cage after murdering the guy, it makes enough sense and I'm alright with it. But this is why when you do movies like this, where a character ends up being the killer and having like a split personality and being in the same place at the same time from our point of view as the audience. You have to get every little detail right. I always bring up High Tension, Switchblade Romance. The first time, great movie. And then you think about the twist and you watch the movie again and it makes no sense at all. So if you do a movie like that where you have, from our point of view, two different characters that end up being the same person, I'm going to scrutinize every little bit of it to make sure it makes sense in the end. So Tom's in the hospital. He is claiming that Harry Warden's alive and he attacked him and locked him in the cage and he watched the other guy get murdered. And then Axel comes out and says, after he has a whole little tit for tat with Tom about his past relationship with his wife Sarah, it's all fucking stupid. I don't care about any of that. But Axel ends up saying and revealing that the old timers, Sheriff Tom Atkins and like two others, ended up killing Harry Warden and burying him. So it's a myth that he died in the mines. They actually made sure he was dead and they buried this dude. And then they go to show his body where he's buried and there's no body there. So Tom had to have known this and moved the body. Then we get more relationship bullshit between Sheriff Axel. There's so many goddamn names, and I said there should be no names this month every year. And Tom are in the interrogation room, and he's questioning Tom about what happened, and did you kill the person down in the mine? And he keeps saying no. Then somebody comes in and says, no, he didn't. There was somebody else down there. That the mining team confirmed that he was locked in the cage. And they have this whole fight break out between the two of them, and Axel's screaming, stay away from my wife. All of that's stupid. Though I will say, there are definite pacing issues in this film. Like, there are long stretches in the second act where just nothing but story is happening. And if you really enjoy the story, I mean, that's great. But like I said, it's alright. I can take it or leave it. Most of it. But way too long in between kills. But it's an hour and 41 minutes, which is already 10 minutes over your typical slasher runtime. They definitely could have cut 20 minutes out of this film and it wouldn't miss a beat. Like scenes of Tom in the woods at night looking for himself, looking for Harry Warden. None of that has to be here. Like, that all could have been cut because this is all in his mind. He's not looking for anybody. He's the fucking killer. But then we do get a great kill with the old timer. Phew, feels good to be back to No Names. When he swings the pickaxe at the ground at him and he rolls out of the way and the pickaxe is stuck in the ground, and then he takes his head and then pushes it like towards the pickaxe, and then he stomps his head onto it. It goes through the back of his head. All of that looks really, really good. Then we get a pretty decent chase sequence that goes on for quite some time, but it's actually suspenseful in certain moments. And we see Sarah and her coworker at a grocery store, Megan, and the miner breaks in and starts chasing after them. They pin themselves in a room for protection for a bit, and then Megan gets taken out a window, and then Axel shows up. They go looking around the building, and they end up finding Megan's corpse just mutilated with "Be Mine Forever" or some shit with a heart written above her body. It's decent. It's a pretty good sequence. Oh, by the way, that girl Megan, the coworker, that's the bottom bitch. That's implying that he has other bitches. There is no confirmation of that, to be clear, okay? Only one, but the one that he's having an affair with. Then we get a great scene with a great kill when Tom, let's just call him Tom at this point, he's the fucking killer, breaks into the sheriff and Sarah's house, and their son's at home with the nanny, and Tom Atkins and the other cop end up coming and searching the house, and the kid is hiding, he's safe, but then the woman cop finds the body of the nanny in the washing machine, and she screams out, and Tom Atkins is on the porch and turns around, and then right through the bottom of the jaw with the pickaxe, and it lingers on it for quite some time, and it looks really good. Then he just rips his jaw off, and his jaw goes flying at the camera. The CGI there doesn't look the best, but it's still fine overall. Like, it's all practical up until that point with that one shot. And that's where you can really see the 3D. Like, that was a 3D shot. But it doesn't really take away from it, but it's a great scene. And then Axel gets a call and finds out that Tom's been in a mental institution for the last 7 years. And it's too late. Tom is already with Sarah. And then Axel's on the phone driving after them, and she's in the car with Tom, and he's telling her all this, that Tom was crazy and all that bullshit, and to just get out of the car, and apologizes for cheating on her and shit, like in the worst moment you could pick. And then she tries to get out of the car. Tom won't let her because he's so convinced that it's Axel, and then she steers the car, and they crash, and a tree branch goes straight through the fucking dash window, in between their heads, through the back for a nice little 3D shot. Fuck you, movie. That is so stupid. So yeah, the ending of this movie is not the best, but it's not terrible or anything. Some decent chase sequences with Sarah and the miner, and then she ends up at Axel's father's cabin and finds a whole shit ton of chocolate boxes because Tom is gaslighting her, making her think that Axel's the killer, and Axel's telling her the truth, what we find out to be the truth, that he's a psychopath, Tom, and that he was institutionalized and he's a maniac. And then there's a lot of bickering back and forth, and then he gives it away, Tom, by saying the words that were written over Megan's body, the girl at the grocery store, the coworker that Axel was fucking on the side. And Sarah asks, how do you know that she was dead? And how do you know it was written above her? And that's what gives him away. Honestly, if it just ended there, like with just the reveal being that it's Tom the whole time, even though, like I've said, it's not really that much of a mystery, the whole movie. I think I would have enjoyed that better than where they take it, having his split personality be the miner, and then you see him with the pickaxe and he's smashing the lights out, and as each light goes out you see the miner for a split second where he is, and I don't know, it's not good. It's not terrible, it's not good. And then they try shooting Tom, and then finally and this is the one shot in this movie that is just 3D to the extreme, with this slow motion bullet that Sarah shoots. It's the last bullet they have. This fucking sheriff doesn't carry more bullets. He only fired the 6 shots out of his gun. He's got no more bullets, and he's tracking down someone who's a serial killer in this town at this point. Whatever. But slow-mo, the bullet going through the side of Tom and then hitting a propane tank or something, and then there's a bad CGI explosion. Axel and Sarah end up getting rescued. And you would think Tom is deader than dead, but of course he's alive. And we see him escaping in like paramedic gear, and he takes the mask off, even though there's still so many people around that can see him, but he takes it off of the camera alone, and it ends. It's not a great slasher. It's a fun 2000s era slasher film to throw on once in a blue moon that has some above average kills for other slasher films and remakes of that period. It's a fun flick to throw on every now and then, but there are some great kills. So that's my Bloody Valentine 3D from 2009. I have done a video on the original. Like I said, it's not that positive because I don't care for it that much. But if you're interested, check it out. And hope everyone's having a great morning, afternoon, or night. And I will talk to you soon. Take care, everybody.